Hi, I just wanted to make a comment about these activist judges providing their biased opinions that are not based on the Constitution regarding the temporary 6-month ban of immigration from 7 terrorist countries in the world. And I don't think I should have to say that I support Trump in this executive order to do so in order for us to be able to set up a system whereby these people can be vetted. Now, this executive order is actually something that's designed to get the ball rolling so that Congress can actually be comfortable about taking up their role according to the Constitution, Part 1, Section 8, which basically says that it is responsible for the national security of our nation. That means that Congress and the House of Appropriations is responsible for the building of the wall. It is responsible for setting up immigration law, and it is responsible for the enforcement of those laws. And since Congress actually passed a law against terrorist activities and those who represent terror against those in the United States and against U.S. citizens, then naturally that includes all radical Muslims who support Sharia law as being a law above the United States Constitution. Now, you liberal judges and activists, you have forgotten what you were taught in college if your degree wasn't gotten out of a Cracker Jack box. Now, I'm speaking to you as an unshaven American in a black t-shirt on his day off at 5:30 in the morning, because I know more about the Constitution and the embodiment of laws, it seems, than you do. Your job is to A, consider the Constitution and the embodiment of laws first and foremost. If anything that is legislative or anything that the president does, then if you are to strike something down, then your first priority is to go to the Constitution of the United States and the embodiment of laws to see if it actually is unconstitutional. Your second step is, if it's not in the Constitution or embodiment of laws, you need to study the opinions, the beliefs, and the values of our forefathers who established this country in the first place, because it is their values and their beliefs which established the Constitution. Then third, if you can't find a forefather intent after looking up the Constitution and the intent, then you find a moral ground. Okay? And the moral ground means that if a particular action may just be constitutional and it may be lawful, but it is immoral because it brings harm to another person, then on a moral basis the law must be struck down, or it must be altered so that it does not, so that it benefits all who are concerned. I understand that this is off the cuff, but I think you're going to understand my gist. The fourth and last step, if you cannot find a constitutional basis, a forefather intent basis, or a moral ground, you then look at legal precedents, where you might find 2 or 3 cases in which there was a judgment made that made an allowance for a particular precedence. In other words, there was a law created and out of not being able to find the constitutional forefather intent or moral high ground. Now, in these cases, judges, and one of you is pretty old, you need to be retired. In this case, your opinions from this judge's panel are unconstitutional, simply because you have not outlined your opinions based on the 4 criteria that I just outlined to you. You don't have a constitutional basis, you don't have a forefather intent, you don't have a moral high ground, and you don't have any legal precedents, period. All you're doing is you're forming a panel against Trump just because you have influence and you have tenure, which, by the way, is an ethical violation against your offices. You must not use power or influence to sway public opinion without any legal basis. So let me repeat this again. According to Part 1 of the Constitution, Section 8, it is Congress's responsibility, in all actuality, to provide for the common defense of the nation, which includes building a wall and controlling immigration. Okay, that's the first thing. Okay? Second thing, Trump, as a Republican, is trying to align our Congress into legislating by the Constitution and enforcing those laws through Constitution. Where the third branch of government comes is our Supreme Court judges. And their job and their duty is to interpret the law in the fashion that I stated, as it is written. And if it cannot be interpreted as written, like I said, then you move to forefather intent. What did they believe? If you can't find a forefather intent, then you go to the moral high ground. If you can't find any moral high ground, then you go to legal precedents. And I will be willing to bet you, judges, liberal judges, activist judges, that if you go back to your schooling, that if you look in the Constitution or forefathers' intent, you will find all the information that you need without going any further, because the moral high ground is in forefathers' intent. And if the Constitution and current embodiment of the laws override legal precedents, then guess what? You have no need to look further. Because if it's in the Constitution, no need to look further. If it's in forefathers' intent, no need to look further. If it's on a moral high ground, but it's constitutional, no need to look further. If you're looking at the moral high ground and it's not constitutional on that basis, then you look for legal precedents. You have not matched any of the four criteria in your four opinions in the judge's panel. Well, that's all I have to say. That's my ramble. I've repeated several themes, and I think you're going to get the gist of this. Thank you very much. Joe Common.